Part 141. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1403. He didn't want his gods to participate in the battle, and he certainly didn't want Zhang Junjian's gods to participate in the battle. When the three of them, blessed by the power of all living beings, walked into the battlefield like masters, Zhang Junjian's expression was cold. He gently waved his hand to ask the gods behind him to retreat. Young master, they shamelessly use the power of sentient beings, we cannot give them the chance to deal with you alone. Some gods said quickly, they actually don't mind fighting to the death for Zhang Junjian, even if they face the opponent they least want to face. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. It's okay. Trust us. Our family has indeed failed the Peak Dragon clan, so we have some debts that we need to repay ourselves, Zhang Junjian said solemnly. He is extremely serious and calm. He is like a needle that stabilizes the sea, firming everyone's hearts. Although the gods were worried, they still listened to his words and retreated directly to the corner, leaving the battlefield to a group of peak figures like them. He asked Zhang Yi to retreat because he could no longer help. On the opposite side, only Zhang Yunhai and 3 people came in. There were 5 people left on their side, including Zhang Zizai and Zhu Xian, who were already more numerous than the other party. For Zhang Junjian, he actually did not want his gods to kill each other. Some of those gods were born later, and some of them were fighting to the death for the Peak Dragon, but they escaped in the end. When the Peak Dragon clan lost Zhang Yunting and Zhang Junjian, they couldn't leave their homeland, and of course they stayed in the Peak Holy Dragon Mountain, so they were led by Zhang Yunhai from now on. That was not wrong. After the war, the Peak Dragon clan needed someone to lead them. Therefore, Zhang Junjian's real opponents now are only the 3 people in front of him. More killings and hatred come from the 4 peak races. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Yunhai and the 3 of them, surrounded by the power of all living beings, arrived in front of them. In the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation, they would be even more powerful. Originally, their strength was about the same, but the power of all living beings, and the suppression of the totem array itself can change the balance and plunge them into eternal disaster. Zhang Junjian, you are so brave to dare to come back and die. It's just that your IQ is still as stupid as before. I really don't know how someone like you can survive until now, Zhang Yunhai sneered. This sentence was not heard by all sentient beings. If you think that stabbing your loved one secretly and being a treacherous person is the so-called high IQ, then I don't bother to have such a high IQ. Zhang Yunhai, between heaven and earth, retribution, repaying evil with kindness, sleep and eat well, Zhang Junjian said. Yes, of course I can. When I think of you and your son suffering so much, I eat well and sleep well. Not to mention I feel comfortable. Zhang Yunhai squinted his eyes and smiled. Zhang Yungxiao and Zhang Yunyu couldn't help laughing at this time. In front of Zhang Yunhai, Zhang Junjian looked like a stupid young man. Really? It's a pity that today, the good days have come to an end. In fact, no matter how they laughed at him, Zhang Junjian remained unmoved. He returned with endless anger and hatred, but his state of mind was as cold as iron. It's your end, Zhang Yunhai said. He doesn't care about Zhang Zizai's strength at all, nor does he care about the 9 immortals who are in the Taisu heavenly divine realm and stay here. He controls the power of all living beings. He has more powerful means than usual. He has with majestic confidence and belief, he stands with all living beings, and he has nothing to fear. Kill. One person at a time. Whoever kills his opponent first will be the winner today, Zhang Yunhai said. Okay, Yunfan, didn't you always want to challenge my number 1 position back then? Today the opportunity has come, and I will give you this opportunity. Black Dragon General Zhang Yungxiao stood up directly, and he raised his fingers towards Golden Dragon General Zhang Yunfan. On the other side, Zhang Yunyan also smiled coquettishly and said to Zhang Yunyan, you said that you are already a member of the Seoul Yuan clan, So why are you coming back to join in the fun? But I do have to thank you for sending so much divine power to our Peak Dragon clan. As a reward, I will leave you with a complete corpse. They each went to the edge, leaving the central battlefield to Zhang Junjian and Zhang Yunhai. Zhang Yunfan and Zhang Yunyan didn't say anything, and followed them directly to both sides. 3 unprecedented and shocking battles were about to break out. Zhang Junjian and Zhang Yunhai, 2 people in the Taishan divine realm. 4 great dragon generals from the Taishu heavenly god realm. The once most glorious lineup of the Peak Dragon clan is now split into 2 camps, killing each other, which is a pity to say the least. How long has Zhang Junjian waited for this battle? As soon as he was resurrected, he couldn't wait to come here, which shows how intolerable he was in his heart. He let the people closest to him and the people he trusted the most betray him, which led to the destruction of his family and the loss of life. Now that Zhang Yunhai is still pretending to be a good person, who can endure it? Even if he had the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation and even sentient beings to help him, Zhang Junjian had no fear in his heart. Between heaven and earth, the largest 6-headed dragon suddenly appeared. One of them was white and the other gray. They were so big that they were boundless. These 2 were Zhang Junjian and Zhang Yunhai. Except for Zhang Yunting, they were once the top dragon clan. The most powerful 2-headed dragon. At this moment, they are fighting at the highest point of the world, launching an unprecedented battle. Such a battle is enough to make the entire Peak Dragon clan excited. I heard that our last Peak Dragon Lord Zhang Yunting was the strongest person in the universe. Even the Taishan god realm was vulnerable in front of him. I heard that his son Zhang Junjian, the former young master, was actually stronger than our current Peak Dragon Lord. I have to say that if they hadn't made any mistakes, our Peak Dragon clan wouldn't have fallen into the situation today if they had such a person. We used to be the Supreme Clan. It is said that this was created by Zhang Yunting and Zhang Junjian. It's a pity. If they hadn't made any mistakes and brought about the eternal disaster, it would have been great. The sentient beings didn't know everything. While they contributed to Zhang Yunhai and the others, they discussed it privately. In fact, looking at all this today, their mood was very complicated. For any Peak Dragon clan, they don't want the strongest to kill each other. They hope that they will support the Peak Dragon clan together. But now, they are clearly mortal enemies, which is unlikely at all. Not only did Zhang Junjian fight Zhang Yunhai, who possessed the power of all living beings, but the 4 dragon generals from the 2 camps also started fighting. Zhang Yungxiao fought against Zhang Yunfan, both of whom were once top figures. Zhang Yunwei fought against Zhang Yunyin, they were once inferior, but now they are both powerful 4th-level gods, and their strength is almost the same as the other 2. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1404. As the second son that Zhang Yunting had never heard of, Zhang Zizai seemed a little embarrassed to be with a peerless beauty at this time. No one paid attention to him at this time. Even Zhang Yunhai and the others didn't understand why such a second son was not hidden, but was brought out to die at this time. Could it be that Zhang Junjian hated him? Just when the 6 dragons were fighting between heaven and earth in a way that was unimaginable to all living beings, Zhang Zizai, who was not paying attention to him, quietly locked his target. He squinted his eyes and saw the black dragon general Zhang Yungxiao. Come on, try. He was actually very calm. This was the calm before the storm, but he had already taken the weapon of killing. This sentence was said to Juxian. Juxian turned into a ray of white light with one of the countless totem abilities, Eternal Guardian, and merged into his body. When her 2 heavenly ways and all the totem power were used by Zhang Zizai could feel that this was the real integration. This combination is very wonderful, as if the 2 people are completely one. At this time, they are one person, one life. Under her eternal protection, Zhang Zizai has indeed become stronger than ever before. At this time, Zhang Yunfan and Zhang Yungxiao, who have finally ended their hatred, are fighting the most fiercely. A golden dragon and a black dragon use their 4 heavenly ways to gather the heavenly artifacts with the power of totems to launch a fatal attack on each other. It can be clearly seen that Zhang Yongxiao has taken advantage of the power of all living beings and the suppression of the totem formation, so he is also smiling, and it seems that he is teasing Zhang Yunfan. Zhang Yunfan, you don't look good. You can't stop this. It seems that you have been sleeping for too long and are completely useless, Zhang Yongxiao sneered. Don't pretend. If you have the guts, you can't rely on the power of the totem formation and fight me one-on-one. You shameless coward, I knew that you were only worthy of being a grandson back then, and you really became Zhang Yunhai's grandson. You are a piece of trash, you are not qualified to be compared with me at all, Zhang Yunfan sneered. Shut up, to be honest, the Black Dragon General really wanted to not use the power of all living beings and fight in an upright manner, but the key was that Zhang Yunhai ordered that Zhang Yunfan must be killed immediately. If he relied on himself alone, it would not be so easy, so now that Zhang Yunfan despised him, he really had nothing to say. However, at this time, when the ignored Zhang Zizai suddenly appeared next to Zhang Yunfan, he smiled and said, "If you think it's unfair, just besiege me with this Zhang Yunting's second son, so that you don't have to say that I bully you, so that you can't cover up the fact that you are now a useless person, right?" As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Zizai exploded directly. He didn't bother to care about the siege, he wanted to kill people. Today, he is the breakthrough. He took a fancy to Zhang Yongxiao's Tiandao, and he wanted to kill Tiandao. Zilong Tower, almost immediately, Zhang Zizai directly suppressed Zhang Yongxiao's head with the Zilong Tower. The towering Zilong Tower was a heavenly artifact that was not recorded in the origin place. The Zilong Tower suppressed Zhang Yongxiao's heavenly way fiercely, even more fiercely than the totem formation's suppression of them. Although it did not make Zhang Yongxiao only have the combat power of 3 heavenly ways, it at least made it difficult for him to exert all his strength. Zilong Tower, it did not suppress the Black Dragon General to the same level as Zhang Zizai, but it could reduce his strength, and even prevented him from using the power of all living beings perfectly. Under such a premise, Zhang Yunfan was in his prime. As one strengthened, the other weakened. As soon as the Zilong Tower came out, he directly escaped from being suppressed by Zhang Yongxiao. "What the hell is this?" Zhang Yongxiao said in shock. "Still talking big, are you scared?" Zhang Zizai laughed. "Shut up, you bastard!" Zhang Yongxiao shouted angrily. The suppression of the ancestral dragon tower made him very uncomfortable. Even the power of all living beings was cut off by the ancestral dragon tower. He clearly felt that he was weakened, but he had no time to grasp how much he was weakened. The 4 heavenly ways of the golden dragon Zhang Yunfan in front of him were like a storm attack, killing. At the same time, it was Zhang Zizai who took action. After possessing the power of the 15 totems of the 9 Immortals, his control method has reached the pinnacle. The 9 Immortals are the existence of 15 sources of evolution of the gods, and normal people only have 1. He is equivalent to having 15 totems of the gods. The first thing that erupted was the power of the totem of the gods. The illusion of the 9 heavens. This is a 9-layered magical realm of the gods. It can also be used with the fantasy sky eye to create a 9-day illusion, which is more terrifying than the former Taisha fantasy sea. One of the 9 Immortals' heavenly ways is the fantasy heavenly way. Using the power of the fantasy heavenly way to display this 9-day illusion still has a certain impact on Zhang Yongxiao in the Taishu heavenly god realm. The key is that this is only one of the 15 kinds of totem abilities of the gods. In addition to the 9-day illusion, there is also a very terrible Great Dream Heart Sea in terms of control. This is simply a sleeping spell. In this realm of the Great Dream Heart Sea, everything can sleep. In addition to several kinds of control, there is also a totem ability of the gods called Death God Sound. This kind of Death God Sound cannot be avoided at all. It can be said that it is more effective when used with the Chaos Soul Bell. Even at the level of direct attack, there are several kinds, such as Eternal Tribulation Aurora. This Eternal Tribulation Aurora shuttles between heaven and earth, like the sharpest heavenly artifact, piercing everywhere. To be honest, although these 15 kinds of totem power of the gods are not enough to kill Zhongyun Xiao, they also form a huge restriction on him, as if countless ropes are tied around his body. When he has to face an opponent like Zhang Yunfan, he will feel very uncomfortable. The key is that Zhang Zizai's means are not just like this. His most terrifying power is the power of destroying the way of heaven. At this time, he separated 4 dragons. The 4 origin holy dragons controlled different heavenly artifacts respectively. All of them used the power of destruction to cooperate with Zhang Yunfan's crazy attack. He was cold and ruthless at this time. His power of destroying the way of heaven may not be enough for the enemy, but these are spikes. As long as Zhang Yunxiao fights with him, he can feel the fear and hiding of the power of the way of heaven. In front of him, it is equivalent to a monster-like existence suddenly appearing. His 4 great ways of heaven, the way of hell, the way of dragon, the way of weeping blood and the way of mad demon were completely restrained. The 6 thunder and flame pillars were enough to cause him very tragic damage. In other words, although Zhang Zizai cannot kill him now, all of his means, including the countless powers of the totems of the gods, the countless divine artifacts, and the most core power of the destructive heavenly Dao, can make him sick to death and restrict him to the point where he cannot do anything. But at the same time, his real opponent, Zhang Yunfan, under Zhang Zizai's control, unleashed an explosive power of the heavenly Dao. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1405. Trash. You are not worthy of being a peak dragon at all. You have lost your faith a long time ago. If you fight for Zhang Yunhai, you are a coward and a waste. You are not qualified to be my opponent at all. Zhang Yunxiao, I once regarded you as a target, but it feels ridiculous now. You have disappointed me so much. From now on, your life will be worse than a dog in my eyes. Because you surrendered to a dog and then felt complacent and proud of it. Zhang Yunfan was very proud, but the Zhang Yunxiao in front of him was contrary to his pride. To be honest, no matter how strong Zhang Yunxiao was, after he made his choice, he was already a coward in Zhang Yunfan's eyes. Shut up. If I don't make this choice, will I be a waste for thousands of years like you? Zhang Yunxiao was furious. He was really irritated. Zhang Zizai's control methods had already made him explode with anger. I have been a waste for thousands of years, but now I see the dawn of hope, but you, Zhang Yunxiao, are at the end of their rope. You have reached the gate of hell. The next step, you will be beyond redemption. It's ridiculous, it's really ridiculous. Haha. Black Dragon continued to laugh. In front of him, ignorant people were just wishful thinking. Their era is over, and now they are just hanging on. What are you dreaming about? Zhang Yunding must have died a long time ago. Just relying on Zhang Junjian, can the once peak dragon clan come back? Stop dreaming and look at the reality clearly. The reality is that you are going to die soon. Suddenly, Zhang Zizai appeared in front of him. His body, the holy dragon from which all living beings originated, was holding the 6-ray thunder flame divine pillar. All the destructive power of heaven exploded at this moment. Zhang Yunxiao he was still immersed in the fight with Zhang Yunfan. He knew that Zhang Zizai had sufficient control methods, but he never paid attention to it. At this time, he suddenly hit Zhang Zizai with a stick. This seemingly simple stick made his destructive power of heaven invade his body crazily. When the power of destroying the way of heaven invaded, he felt that something was wrong. This was simply a poison that could disintegrate his power of the way of heaven. What kind of power is this? This is not the power of heaven. What on earth is this? What the hell are you? Zhang Yongxiao was stunned. He never thought that his power of heaven would be in chaos like it was at this moment. Collapse. The power to kill you. Zhang Zizai's voice was still calm, but he said the smell of death. Zhang Yongxiao was still stunned, he couldn't figure it out at all. However, his opponent would not give him time to figure it out. Just when this guy was temporarily restrained by Zhang Zizai's destruction of heaven, Zhang Yunfan seized this opportunity and exploded. His divine weapon is called Red Gold Giant Divine Sword. Driven by his 4 heavenly powers, the Red Gold Giant Sword fell from the sky at this moment. At this critical moment, Zhang Yongxiao wanted to resist, but he still underestimated the destruction. Due to the restrictions imposed by heaven on him, the power of heaven that he can exert at this time is less than half. What's more important is that Zhang Zizai's ancestral dragon tower was directly suppressed at this time, giving him a fatal blow, causing the power of heaven that he had finally gathered to collapse again. If it collapsed like this, Zhang Yunfan's killing method would be like a powerful force, falling directly from the sky and directly inserting on his dragon's head, and the power of the 4 heavenly ways would pierce it on the spot. A sword through the head. Almost everyone saw this scene, and they all saw clearly that the red gold giant sword passed through Zhang Yongxiao's head. In an instant, Black Dragon General Zhang Yongxiao let out an earth-shattering scream. At that moment, death had arrived. Although he was not dead yet, he was extremely weak. Zhang Yunfan's 4 heavenly powers directly invaded his body, tearing his flesh and blood into pieces and leaving them riddled with holes. The sharp sword energy cut out countless blood holes. For a time, the sky was filled with blood. In the next moment, Zhang Zizai's 4 holy dragon bodies of origin were surrounded. Facing this enemy of life and death, he showed no mercy for a moment. All his methods were pouring in crazily, and all the heavenly artifacts were used to destroy the power of heaven. A sudden suppression. Save me, Zhang Yongxiao screamed wildly. In fact, the battle didn't start long, so his 2 teammates were still focusing on their opponents. At this time, it was so easy to take down Zhang Junjian and Zhang Yunyin. Such a cry for help came out of the blue. However, it was already too late. When they looked over in shock, they saw Zhang Yunfan using the 4 powers of heaven to press Zhang Yongxiao's body into a golden cauldron, and Zhang Zizai he had already rushed in and started a killing spree. His destructive power of heaven was reveling in it, madly tearing apart the 4 severely damaged heavens. Puff puff puff. The heavenly paths were shattered directly. Save me. Unfortunately, Zhang Yongxiao's last voice was not uttered. Under the power of destruction, whether it was the way of heaven, the divine body or the divine soul, it was shattered and dissipated. Zhang Yunfan's sword directly broke through all his defenses. Under heavy injuries, he couldn't stop Zhang Zizai's killing. At the last moment, his eyes dimmed and he looked at Zhang Zizai in fear. Remember, my name is Zhang Zizai, and I am also the flower of destruction you want. When he heard the last 4 words, his trembling and fear completely dissipated. It could be seen that he was finally desperate and regretted, but there was no chance. Zhang Yongxiao's death caused the entire battle process and the entire world to suddenly fall into deathly silence. Zhang Zizai's words were only spoken to Zhang Yongxiao. No one knew what he said to make Zhang Yongxiao so desperate. This chapter is not finished yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading the exciting content. This is not important. What is important is that people saw that Zhang Yunting's second son Zhang Zizai, together with Zhang Yunfan, killed the Black Dragon General Zhang Yongxiao. The leader of the 4 dragon generals who had countless glories, suddenly died in an incredible way. His death was strange and unbelievable, but his flesh and blood corpse could be seen by everyone. The moment after the dead silence was madness. People exclaimed and wanted to shout, but they couldn't shout out because they didn't know what they could say. Anyway, except for being dazed, it was still dazed. Is it interesting? Zhang Junjian saw that his opponent had stopped, and he also stopped. Interesting, really very interesting. Zhang Yunhai was stunned, his face was a little pale, his number one capable general suddenly died in battle, he couldn't figure it out at all, but he also knew that there was no time. He directly ordered, everyone come in, kill Zhang Yunfan, kill this Zhang Zizai. He took a deep look at Zhang Zizai, he had a hunch that this might be the biggest trump card Zhang Junjian brought today. Kill Zhang Zizai, there will be a big reward. Under his order, many gods were ready to move and came here. Reward him for the heavenly artifact, Zhang Yunhai said again, under the big reward, there must be a reckless man. He didn't know that Zhang Zizai had closed his eyes now. He felt it. After killing 4 heavenly ways, his destructive power was growing unprecedentedly and erupting unprecedentedly. He was getting stronger and stronger. The master of destruction, the nightmare of destruction, seemed to be descending on this world. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1406. The death of Black Dragon General Zhang Yongxiao shocked the entire audience in an instant. The entire peak of Shenlong Mountain fell into unbelievable silence. Those immortal characters disappeared in the blink of an eye. The so-called immortality seemed like a joke at this time. Immortality means that you will not die as long as you are not killed, and there will be no end of life. However, killing can directly end your life. As the saying goes, there will be reckless people under heavy rewards. Zhang Yunhai could tell at a glance that Zhang Zishan had many artifacts. He must have known in his heart that those gods were not eager enough to fight. If he wanted them to reverse the situation and contribute their strength, he still needed a heavy reward. Otherwise, if they do not participate in the war and let Zhang Zizai and Zhang Yunfan join them on the battlefield, they will definitely be able to easily break the current balance. Not only did he ask the gods to take action, he also asked all sentient beings to work harder to provide him with sentient beings' power. All compatriots of the Peak Dragon clan, listen, this son of a sinner and his ministers used a siege to brutally kill Zhang Yongxiao. Such despicable and shameless methods are really disgusting. They have been blatant, so shameless, and they even want to returning to the Peak Dragon clan. If the Peak Dragon clan is controlled by this group of sinners, then we will inevitably lose our lives again and be in trouble again. We can no longer afford to lose, and we must not let the son of sinners do whatever they want. Please give me the strength to kill these people. They must give justice to Zhang Yongxiao and all the compatriots who were killed by them. He has always been good at bewitching people's hearts. When he declared with such grief and anger, more people would naturally provide him with strength. The benefits of the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian Array were all on him, so he couldn't get it in a short time. Going to Zhang Junjian already made him a little nervous. Kill! He let out an earth-shattering roar, full of righteousness, and cooperated with the power of all living beings to suppress Zhang Junjian crazily. On the other side, thousands of gods have also rushed in. Their target is Zhang Zizai. As long as they kill him, they can get his divine weapon. Faced with this guy who they have no feelings for in the first place, of course they know mercy. But they didn't expect that when they rushed in, the gods who came with Zhang Zizai and the others would appear in front of them and block their way. The two teams are now close, and former brothers and sisters, even father and son, meet here. The people who came with Zhang Junjian were basically older, even the ancestors of the gods in front of him. Those who stayed at the pinnacle of Shenlong Mountain basically knew about the existence of these ancestors. They have either met countless times before, or they seem to have known each other, but now they meet in different camps. To be honest, there are not many camps that truly belong to Zhang Yunhai. After the battle, they stayed in the Peak Dragon clan simply because they had nowhere to go. There were less than 500 people left at that time, and the remaining 500 gods were all born after the battle. Some of them grew up under the influence of Xuanhuan and have nothing to do with the thousands of gods in front of them. The number of gods is less than 200. Everyone, you all know who was the traitor back then, who leaked the news, who betrayed the peak dragon lord, and who betrayed his own race. Why bother pretending not to know today? We are all upright dragons. Why bother? We continue to serve the traitors regardless of our conscience. When we come back this time, we have the ability and confidence to rebuild the peak dragon clan, so that we will no longer be bullied by others. Let us return to the supreme clan, and let us regain our dignity, instead of like this. Just like Xuanhuan, he is just a deluded trash. Zhang Yi stood in front of everyone, his voice was very loud. In fact, what he said is right. As gods, wouldn't they know exactly what happened back then? Xuanhuan can bewitch all living beings, but he cannot deceive them. They all know that it was Xuanhuan who secretly revealed the news of the curse of destruction, and it was he who led the 4 peak races to attack in order to seize the flower of destruction. It was he who caused the civil strife after the attack by outsiders. The casualties that year may have something to do with Xuanhuan's search for the flower of destruction, but the real culprit was Xuanhuan. After all, if it was in its prime, as long as there was no leak of information, who knew that Xuanhuan wouldn't be able to solve the curse of destruction on his own? They all know that it's just that reality has deceived them. If you want to say that there are mistakes, my grandfather Xuanhuan is indeed at fault. It was his eternal pursuit that brought all this. But the ones who are really wrong are not the traitors. Aren't they the 4 peak races who harmed their compatriots? So everyone, we are here. I came back for revenge and for dignity. If you want to be a useless person without conscience and without the backbone of our peak dragon clan. If you want to be despised by future generations and disappoint the ancestors, you can do it now. Come and take action against your own compatriots, take action against your own relatives. Zhang Yi's words were impassioned. In fact, he had not thought about what he was going to say. These were just thoughts from his heart, and he spoke them out loud. It's actually useful. When his voice spread throughout the world, thousands of returning gods looked at their compatriots with red eyes. When their relatives met, or even couples met, most of them had some feelings. Couldn't help it anymore. Dad, suddenly, a god rushed out from the other side's camp, his tears already falling. On this day, he finally saw his former faith and the man who taught him his whole life. He was back. At first, he didn't dare to approach him, but when their eyes collided, he finally couldn't help it. Next to Zhang Yi, an old man wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes. He didn't care about anything else and went directly to the two of them. They hugged each other in the middle. After thousands of years, they died and resurrected. This hug reached eternity. I thought I would never see you again in this life. The 2 grown men cried bitterly, but they didn't look ugly at all. There are too few moments like this in life. The broken mirror is reunited, and the men shed a few tears. What can it do? With a beginning, there is a continuation. One after another, people from both camps came out. Some were brothers, some were old friends, some were grandparents, and some were couples. There were at least 4 couples who were back together at this moment after parting in life and death. This is not a battlefield, this is a large-scale family recognition site. This is the power of family love and friendship. This is a fact that cannot be changed no matter who says it. Around Zhang Yi, at least half of the people have gone to the central position, and the remaining gods are also watching with a smile. Although they don't know anyone in the other camp, their descendants are still in the peak Holy Dragon Mountain. Every god has a family and bloodline, and they all had a vast fiefdom in the peak Holy Dragon Mountain. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1407. There are very few gods who really don't integrate here. They may not have ancestors of gods, but they may have reached the path of gods through their own struggles. However, there are very few such people, perhaps less than 100, because every god, even if they were born after the war, has some blood relationship with the original gods. Therefore, this scene disappointed Zhang Yunhai very much. He wanted to see them kill Zhang Zizai, not let them hold a family recognition meeting here. Seeing their tearful return, the two groups of gods were almost completely mixed together. He was furious. He had the confidence to take down Zhang Junjian, but now this kind of interference also gave Zhang Junjian a chance to breathe. Maybe there are still gods who want to take action against Zhang Zizai, but those gods who have gathered together are not stupid. They quickly reached a certain consensus, that is, you fight your own, your future is decided by yourself, and you can decide the winner. They don't participate in the war, and they can't participate in the war. They can't take action against their relatives and friends, because everyone is right. If possible, Zhang Zizai did not want to do anything to his relatives. After all, Zhang Yunhai was his uncle. However, the sins he committed had caused too much harm to Zhang Yunting and the others. He was not a saint. On the contrary, he would never let go of any grudge. Now, Zhang Yunhai was protected by the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation. He was very powerful, but so what? His gods basically did not work for him now. He only had the power of all living beings now, and he could only continue to confuse and confuse all living beings. The gods present knew clearly what he had done. He had always been a traitor, and this had never changed. It was just that after the war, the Peak Dragon clan could only be supported by him, otherwise it would not even be considered a peak race and would be completely extinct. However, now that Zhang Junjian had returned, Zhang Yunting's situation was still unknown. With other options, the gods were not so easily fooled. This is the best situation Zhang Zizai has seen. In fact, the Peak Dragon clan is an admirable race. They are all upright people. It is really unexpected that there is a person like Zhang Yunhai. Since ancient times, their nature has disdained to play any tricks. They trust their own people very much, but Zhang Yunhai does not deserve to be trusted. After killing Zhang Yunfan, Zhang Zizai did not stop. He enjoyed the crazy growth of the power of destruction. The death of a Tiandao in the realm of Taisha Tianshen was very explosive for him. A kind of destruction enhanced by destruction is indeed the most terrible existence in the world. He himself feels terrible. He can be powerful by killing the Tiandao of the gods. He is now a real destroyer and terminator of the gods. In time, he doesn't know what he will become. If it is difficult to control, what are the consequences? These are all later stories. When the gods united together, he locked the next opponent, that is, Zhang Yuning, who is now suppressing Zhang Yunyan with the Peak Holy Dragon Protection Array. However, she was already trembling. She saw her husband die in battle and saw Zhang Zizai locking onto her. She had a chance to severely injure Zhang Yunyan, but now she could only flee. Save me, she forced herself out of the battlefield and headed towards Zhang Yunhai, exclaiming, "Brother Yunhai, save me." Zhang Yungxiao was dead, and she had 3 people from Zhang Zizai chasing her. How could she survive? Zhang Yungxiao was dead, and she didn't think she could survive by relying on the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation. I can't leave. If you commit a sin, you have to pay the price. Zhang Yunyan stopped her directly. The two were at the same level, so it was not difficult to entangle her. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Zizai and the Golden Dragon General Zhang Yunfan came to her. Quick battle, quick decision, kill, Zhang Zizai said directly to Zhang Yunyan and Zhang Yunfan with a cold face. The 3 of them surrounded her together and blocked her way, especially Zhang Zizai, who stood between her and Zhang Yunhai. Seeing this woman in panic, Zhang Zizai could hardly show mercy. In the Peak Dragon clan, such a treacherous person who recognized the thief as his father and acted as an accomplice to the tiger was hard to tolerate. He was already addicted to the power of destruction. Zhang Yunwei also locked her target, because she clearly knew that as long as she caught Zhang Zizai, she might still have hope. She once looked at Zhang Yunhai with hopeful eyes, but she saw that Zhang Yunhai wanted her to delay as much as possible so that he could kill Zhang Junjian. As long as Zhang Junjian died in battle, all the troubles today would be resolved. She never expected that today's plan to destroy them with great confidence would be inexplicably disrupted by Zhang Zizai. She locked on Zhang Yunding's second son. As long as she controlled him, she might have a way to survive. Die. For a moment, she controlled 4 heavenly paths and came to kill Zhang Zizai. Wherever her Kangxue heavenly path went, it was truly frozen for thousands of miles, and the endless territory directly became a snowy area. Her Bingpo heavenly path was bone-chilling cold, directly freezing the world and shrouding Zhang Zizai in it. Her third heavenly path, Shengming heavenly path, protected itself and could also burst out a strong light of destruction, piercing the world. She also had the purifying heavenly path, which could offset many control methods. Her heavenly god artifact Bingpo Yuanzu was also very terrifying. At this time, she threw it out directly and suppressed Zhang Zizai's head. Endless icy power swarmed in and controlled this world. To be honest, this kind of 4th-level heavenly god's means should not be underestimated. However, Zhang Zizai was not fighting alone. His ancestral dragon tower also suppressed his opponent's head, completely suppressing his opponent. He was stronger than before he defeated the Black Dragon General, and his power of destruction was more vigorous. When the opponent's 3 kinds of heavenly ways came to kill, they could not break his destructive power. In the destruction, the ice and snow melted, and the ice was ineffective. Even the holy and bright heavenly ways could not penetrate Zhang Zizai. At the same time, Zhang Yunfan and Zhang Yunyan showed no mercy for a moment. They used all their means to suppress him directly. The 2 dragons practiced fighting. This was the most critical moment. They all tried their best to burst out. Zhang Yunwei placed her hope on Zhang Zizai. She originally thought that she could kill and control Zhang Zizai, but when she found that all her strength was difficult to injure Zhang Zizai in a short time, she fell into the vortex of death. The 3 powerful men instantly joined forces to fight. Zhang Zizai didn't know what heavenly Dao methods the 2 of them used, but he used everything anyway, all of which were controlled by the current power of heavenly Dao of destruction. He could completely open a gap in Zhang Yunyeo's body, blast the destructive power into the opponent's body, severely injuring the body, and directly look for the root of the heavenly Dao, and attack violently. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1408. 3 against 1, and with a weapon like Zhang Zizai, it was simply crushing. Zhang Yunyu never expected that she would be so vulnerable one day. Her divine body and heavenly soul collapsed completely. In an instant, all her flesh and blood were shattered, and her heavenly soul was severely injured. Even the power of heavenly law was being wildly tapped by Zhang Zizai at this moment. She almost resisted. There was no chance, and he was shattered into pieces while screaming in pain. Brother Yunhai, save me, save me. At the last moment, she kept looking in that direction desperately, but the man didn't even look back. He was seizing every moment to kill Zhang Junjian as soon as possible. Sure enough, he loved herself. Zhang Yunyun closed her eyes in pain. She was desperate and died in despair. Her life was completely over at such a trembling moment. Zhang Zizi heard her last words and understood what they meant, but he did not stop. No wonder why she wanted to seek refuge with Zhang Yunhai so early. It turned out that she was still in a relationship while married. Poor Zhang Yungxiao, he was probably unaware from the beginning to the end. I have worn this hat for tens of millions of years without knowing it, which is also a state of mind. No wonder Zhang Yunhai doesn't have an official wife now, let alone any heirs. It turns out that he has been secretly touching for so many years. Zhang Zizai was not guessing. She could see the desperate look in her eyes at the end. When Zhang Yongxiao died in battle before, she only had fear but no sorrow, which meant that she had no love at all in her heart. But now that she died in battle, she had no love at all. I thought about Zhang Yongxiao and looked at Zhang Yunhai from the beginning to the end. Maybe it's very complicated, but it has nothing to do with Zhang Zizai. He killed Zhang Yunyun, and he could clearly feel that killing this Taisha god realm directly caused his power to destroy the way of heaven to continue to grow, and the more he destroyed, the more he destroyed. The more powerful he becomes, his god has no realm, but there is no limit to his power. So far, Zhang Yunhai's two most powerful helpers, his left and right arms, have all been killed in the battle. It is difficult for his gods to join the battle, and now he is the only one left. Of course, there are also sentient beings for him to bewitch. When Zhang Yunyu died in the battle, he didn't even look back because he found an opportunity to kill Zhang Junjian. He was relying on the power of all living beings to suppress Zhang Junjian crazily. He knew that this was his only chance. As long as Zhang Junjian died in the battle, he would still capable of turning the tide. He can still control more than 2,000 gods and become the glorious peak dragon master. Little did he know that at this moment, everyone's eyes in the world seemed to be on Zhang Zizai. The first two battles were all performed by Zhang Yunting's second son. He played a very important role in the two battles. If it weren't for him, Zhang Yunfan wouldn't have been able to defeat Zhang Yongxiao, who had the power of all living beings, and they wouldn't have been able to surround Zhang Yunyu. Dad, is this really Zhang Yunting's second son? What state is he in, and why can't he understand it at all? Someone among the gods had already asked. You will know by looking at it. This is a miracle created by the Dragon Lord and the young master over the years. He is an important weapon for our peak dragon clan to return to its peak. We dare to return, and we dare to meet the challenges of the four peak races in the future. It's all because of his existence. Of course, as long as everything goes well, he can also let our peak dragon master Zhang Yunting escape the curse of destruction and truly return in the future. Wow, when such news spread throughout the group of gods, they were excited. At this time, they really saw hope. It turned out that they hoped that Zhang Junjian would no longer be in charge of the overall situation, but in this Zhang Zizai, as expected, only the son of the peak dragon lord can have such a terrifying demeanor at the moment. Why is he so weird? I don't know, but now Zhang Yunhai is in trouble. That's not necessarily true. After all, he still has the power of sentient beings. Have you noticed that after Zhang Yongxiao and Zhang Yunyu died in the battle, our compatriots from the peak dragon clan were angry? Zhang Yunhai is now extremely powerful, and all sentient beings have provided him with too much. With more strength, he still has a chance to make a comeback. I don't really hope that he can make a comeback. How to do that? Everyone, you can choose to do nothing, but everyone knows very well who Zhang Yunhai is. If we let him seize the opportunity, we will have no future at all. To be honest, this is an incompetent person who still wants to control the overall situation. People, the peak dragon clan has no hope at all in his hands. Now that all sentient beings are confused by him, we can do something. Some people among the gods have already started to make suggestions. That's right. If you think it goes against your heart, you don't have to do it, but please don't stop us, because we have experienced too much in the 49 god realms, and we know who can really lead us back to the top. He is a person truly worth following. In order to pursue the realm of the Lord, there is nothing wrong with looking for the flower of destruction. Those who betray their brothers and their compatriots are the real sinners, so I want to tell all living beings. Everyone, please follow me. I cannot let my descendants contribute to such a traitor. Walk. They've decided. Now Zhang Yunhai attacks Zhang Junjian with the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation, and there is no restriction on them at all. These 2,000 gods, at least 1,700 people, have left here. They spread out and descended on various people in the entire Peak Holy Dragon Mountain. When they saw the power of sentient beings permeating the world, they began to speak. They did not sensationalize, but only told the confused sentient beings the true truth at the time. Zhang Yi leads all this. The gods who were less than 300 and still left here looked at each other and eventually followed them. Maybe they would not say anything to the sentient beings because they themselves were not sure of the truth, but they would choose to keep their mouths shut and let those who knew to speak and let those who knew to take charge of the situation. In this world, only Zhang Yunhai, who was trying his best to kill Zhang Junjian, and Zhang Zizai, who were heading towards them, were left. Just when Zhang Junjian was facing great pressure, the three of them appeared and, together with Zhang Junjian, stopped Zhang Yunhai from killing. Is Wei dead? Zhang Yunhai was stunned for a moment, then suddenly stopped, looking at them with a dark and trembling face. Zhang Yungxiao also treats you as a brother, but you can even do such a thing. Being your brother, Zhang Yunhai, is really the most unlucky thing in your life. You are such a disgusting rubbish. Zhang Yunfan is a straightforward person. Facing such a person, he couldn't help but say a word. Looking at Zhang Yunhai's gloomy expression at this moment, it is clear that he and Zhang Yunyao have been having an affair. Moreover, since Zhang Yunyao joined him during the war, it is clear that this is not something that happened overnight. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1409. If Zhang Yungxiao didn't have face, and the couple had been together for too long, Zhang Yungxiao would have been kicked out right now. The disgust of this man is truly breathtaking. He is really good at hiding. He used to hide his ambitions, but now he hides his treacherous feelings. After Zhang Yunyu died in the battle, he enjoyed the incomparable surging power of all living beings. At this time, he was so powerful that he exploded. Such strength gave him endless faith and confidence. He squinted his eyes and suddenly sneered, "So you think that by killing them and leaving me with no helpers, you will succeed, right? You still today, are you still so naive? What about you, are you just relying on the power of all living beings?" Zhang Junjian smiled coldly. He knew that the gods were already everywhere in the world. Zhang Yunhai, a shameless person, a person who confuses all living beings, is not worthy of having the power of all living beings. Zhang Zizai stood in front of him and said word by word. "Little hairy boy, how old are you, and you dare to teach me a lesson? Get out of the way first, you are not qualified to speak here. Or, do you want to be the first to die now?" In his eyes, the only real opponent is Zhang Junjian. No matter how defiant the others are, they are all things that can be crushed directly. Tigers and lions are fighting, and there are a few rabbits beside them, which will not affect the overall situation at all. The gods are already in place. Zhang Junjian took a deep breath and looked at each other. The four of them suddenly walked back to avoid Zhang Yunhai, who was now extremely swollen. Fellow compatriots of the Peak Dragon clan. At this moment, on behalf of my father, I, Zhang Junjian, apologize to all of you. Once, in order to pursue the Supreme Cultivator, he looked for the Flower of Destruction. He was cursed by the Flower of Destruction and fell into difficulties. His difficulties led to due to the tragic defeat of our Peak Dragon clan, we have fallen from the Supreme Clan to where we are today. It is our responsibility to not protect everyone, so we are indeed at fault. When he returned this time, he really needed to say something to everyone. However, the real reason why we were defeated was because Zhang Yunhai spread the news of the curse of destruction to the enemy, which attracted the enemy to come to fight for the Flower of Destruction. However, while we were defending ourselves against foreign enemies, he attacked my father from behind. At that time, my father was exorcising the curse of the Flower of Destruction. If this traitor hadn't suddenly attacked, my father might not have been able to suppress the curse of destruction. Because of his shamelessness, my father was severely injured by the curse of destruction and lost most of his combat power. It also caused us to be destroyed. The four peak races broke through and suffered heavy casualties. We are indeed at fault, but Xuanhuan is the real sinner. Everything I said can be testified by all the gods present. In fact, there are many people who know the truth. Most people who survived that era know who is the shameless traitor and who really killed their compatriots. Relatives, led to the decline of our supreme clan. There are indeed people who can testify to what Zhang Junjian said, because the gods are everywhere now, and they have been prepared for a long time. Originally, they wanted to prepare what they said, but now that Zhang Junjian has spoken, they only need to testify. At this time, all the gods who knew the truth stood up one by one. When all the gods testified for Zhang Junjian, some people seemed to be in trouble. Don't listen to his nonsense. This is completely fabricated. It was their own arrogance that led to the destruction. Now they are blaming me. It is absolutely ridiculous. Xuanhuan panicked, because Zhang Junjian was about to move his fundamentals. If I'm talking nonsense, are the gods of the entire Peak Dragon clan talking nonsense? We are all people left from that era. We have countless image talismans of your evil deeds in our hands, all of which are at the level of god talismans. The records are clear. Who I can watch your shameless behavior at that time. What's the point of your quibbles now? Zhang Junjian's voice was like a bell, and he was confident at this moment, while Xuanhuan always thought that he could control everything and all living beings. You don't have enough character support, and you want to use the power of all living beings to overturn the situation. You are really ridiculous. Xuanhuan, a person who has done many evil things, has no foundation in the first place. Why should you deceive yourself? Zhang Zizai's laughter also spread like this. All over the world. Many gods do have the original image talisman in their hands. The image talisman at the level of the god talisman can cover the entire battlefield at that time. Many sentient beings can directly see how Xuanhuan attacked his own people, betraying the common people. Everyone must remember that it was the strength of my father, Xuanhuan, that drove the strength of the entire Peak Dragon clan. Because of his suppression, when we were in glory, we were the supreme clan with 1 against 5. Not Xuanhuan, who was just the one behind the scenes. Those who stab us have no such ability. Under Xuanhuan's rule these years, do we, the Peak Dragon clan, still have the dignity of a supreme clan? How can we be bullied by anyone in the past? Look at the reputation of other peak races, Zhang Zizai continued. He just felt it was unfair for his father, that's why he said so much. And now, we are back. One day, my father will also come back. At that time, our Peak Dragon clan can return to its most glorious moment and survive in this place of origin with face and dignity. Only then can we let's take back everything that belongs to us and make those who harmed our compatriots pay the price, instead of being like Xuanhuan, who harmed his compatriots and betrayed his loved ones, then just be an incompetent coward here. Zhang Zizai's words were very straightforward, but also very good. Understand? He can make all living beings see their hope. Brothers and sisters, our Peak Dragon clan has stood firm in the world with an upright backbone since ancient times. Being upright and incorruptible is our pursuit and quality. Our ancestors have respected standing tall and proud of sacrificing their lives since the birth of the world. The reason why Xuanhuan can betray is because we don't bother to betray. We are the supreme clan that stands tall and proud, not the rats who betray their relatives. Today we return to rebuild the dignity of our supreme clan. Everyone, do you still want to contribute the power of all living beings to this incompetent rat? This paragraph was said by Zhang Junjian. He is worthy of being an emperor. This inciting power is much clearer than Zhang Zizai. When such words, like surging lava, rush between heaven and earth, when the contents of the God Talisman are displayed between heaven and earth, when all the gods are speaking for Zhang Junjian, the eyes of all living beings are sharp. They have heard some rumors before, and now it has been truly proved. Maybe there will be no one in the world who will contribute to Xuanhuan. In an instant, the entire Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation disappeared. In fact, the most inspiring thing is the hope brought by their brothers. One is upright. The other is endless. This is the backbone of the Peak Dragon clan. Not the beast who betrayed his brother and played with his women. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1410. When the power of all living beings dissipated, Zhang Yunhai, who once had the ambition of all living beings, was now just a lonely man. The 2,000 gods were no longer on his side. His two most capable helpers had died in battle. When all living beings chose to abandon him, he was alone. Hypocrisy without foundation will eventually become a bubble of nothingness. Now it's time for you to pay the price for your stupidity and ignorance, and for your madness. When everything was settled, Zhang Yunhai lost the power of all living beings, and Zhang Junjian and others were already standing in front of him. The Peak Holy Dragon protection array had disappeared, and all living beings could see the truth clearly. He had completely lost the opportunity to quibble on the side of all living beings. With the evidence being conclusive, quibbling and bewitching would only make him look more despicable. People like him must know that they are already doomed in the Peak Dragon clan. These 2,000 gods are the foundation of the Peak Dragon clan, and they are the pillars here. Once they stand on Zhang Junjian's side, there will be no place for him here. After losing the power of all living beings, facing Zhang Junjian, Zhang Zizai, Zhang Yunfan, and Zhang Yunyin, it was basically impossible for him to take down these four people. He himself did not believe that he could do it. After losing the power of all living beings, he could only fight Zhang Junjian to a draw at most. He suddenly laughed helplessly and said, "Forget it, forget it. You have come here with careful preparations. You are good at making up stories. If you can deny my efforts for the Peak Dragon race over the years, it would be ridiculous. If it weren't for me, you would have been slaves of other peak races for thousands of years. It's useless to say anything now, but if you want to kill me, that's wishful thinking. I want to leave, and no one can stop me. Peak Dragon race, one day, I will come back, and then everyone will know who can give you safety. Now they are a family, carrying the flower of destruction. They have returned, and you just wait for the 4 peak races to come again. Let this place again, blood will flow like a river. When the time comes, you will truly understand who is the one who really brought disaster to you. The 4 peak races will know the news of their return immediately, and they thought it was a good thing. Haha, next, let's see if the Peak Holy Dragon Mountain will be stained with blood. Zhang Yunding opened the origin cave to escape at the beginning. I wonder when they will open the origin cave to escape this time. In the end, I still have to clean up the mess and collect your bodies. I have done this once, and I didn't expect it to happen again. Your stupidity is really amazing. To be honest, what he said did spread some panic. Of course, people are worried that the 4 peak races will come again. If they join forces, their strength will still be much stronger than the current Peak Dragon race. If the disaster at the beginning happens again, then at that time, it will definitely be the time for the Peak Dragon race to bleed again. The flower of destruction is one reason. Another reason is that they were too powerful in the past. In fact, none of the 5 of them want the Supreme Clan to appear, unless they themselves are the Supreme Clan. People looked at Zhang Junjian, wanting to see what he had to say. Zhang Junjian had a cold face, and he said, "There is no need for you, a person who betrayed the bloodline, to say more about this. Whatever happens in the future, we, the Peak Dragon clan, will face it together. Whether it is life or death or fighting, we are fearless and unyielding. I should protect our homeland with my life, instead of being servile to the enemy like you, and these enemies were once just licking dogs of our supreme clan. He didn't need to tell Xuanhuan about their plan. Now, he just wanted revenge and wanted this traitor to pay the price. If they don't take action, we brothers will deal with you. Do you want to escape? Or do you want to stand up and fight us upright? Xuanhuan, when will you stop being a coward who can only be servile and linger? When Xuanhuan was about to retreat, Zhang Zizai's words forced him to stop. He was mocked by a little hairy kid, and he, who had always been rational, could not tolerate it at this moment. That's his freedom. He is so despicable anyway. He doesn't care about being infamous for thousands of years. How can he care about the contempt and spitting of all living beings? Because he has no face at all. Zhang Junjian cooperated with Zhang Zizai's ridicule. The two sang in unison and cooperated perfectly. Their words caused laughter from all living beings. Xuanhuan's behavior at this time was indeed completely inconsistent with the pride in the blood of the Peak Dragon clan. That's right. Only trash without face and dignity will betray their relatives and compatriots. They will not dare to fart when provoked by us, and only want to escape like a rat. Zhang Zizai shook his head. Xuanhuan's face was ashen, his eyes were full of bloodshot, staring at them, and said, "Do you know that if I kill you, this Peak Dragon clan will still be controlled by me? No matter what he did, the Peak Dragon clan needs someone to sit in charge. If they didn't have their brothers, all living beings would still have to rely on him. Although he lost the people's hearts, he can still be the emperor. I know, but the key is you don't have the guts. Don't you want to leave? Aren't you going to be like a beast and tell on the 4 top races? Calling you a beast is an exaggeration. No living being will go looking for the enemy to kill its own blood brothers," Zhang Zizai said with a smile. "The reason why I said so much is that if Xuanhuan must flee, they may not be able to stop him. To be on the safe side, he provoked this guy a few times. Having been the top dragon master for tens of millions of years, Xuanhuan is indeed very temperamental. Maybe Xuanhuan can humiliate him like this, but these two juniors sang the same tune, and then the world was filled with their own mocking voices. It can be imagined that once he left, he would be a joke of the top dragon clan for tens of millions of years. This is intolerable." His eyes were bloodshot, staring at Zhang Zizai, and said fiercely, "You brothers dare to fight with me? Others don't move. Isn't that more than enough? Revenge, of course, we do it ourselves. With your traitors' blood, comfort the compatriots who sacrificed at the time," Zhang Zizai said. "Very good, then go together." Xuanhuan made a choice. In fact, he was also for an opportunity. As long as he could hold on and kill these two people, then no matter how famous he was, this world would still be his. But if he gave up this opportunity to escape, the thought that the entire Peak Holy Dragon Mountain despised and looked down on him would make him uncomfortable. He could not bear this discomfort. His mind was on fire, and the power of the 5 heavenly paths gave him endless confidence. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1411. Zhang Zizai and Zhang Junjian looked at each other. With the support of all living beings, they did not hesitate at all. Zhang Junjian had been waiting for this moment for too long. Superior. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Zhang Zizai has long been unhappy with this guy. This kind of sanctimonious and hypocritical guy is the most disgusting thing. He has already become jealous today. This Xuanhuan is his ultimate target today. He couldn't help it for a moment, and just when he and Zhang Junjian were ready, they took action. The pinnacle battle of the Pinnacle Dragon clan breaks out immediately. Without saying a word, Zhang Zizai let Zhang Yunhai feel the power of the ancestral dragon tower for the first time. The ancestral dragon tower suppressed it with the power of destroying the way of heaven. After killing 2 Taisha gods, Zhang Zizai's current power of destroying the way of heaven was unprecedented. Strong. This was the first unexpected suppression for Zhang Yunhai. He had seen the power of the Zilong Pagoda and knew that this artifact was very special, but he never expected that it would have such a powerful effect on him. His 5 heavenly ways were comprehensive. Being weakened and suppressed, he was hampered everywhere. Zhang Yunhai's 5 heavenly ways are famous in the world, namely, Xuanhuan Heavenly Way, Stormy Heavenly Way, Golden Armor Heavenly Way, Huoyun Heavenly Way and Canghai Heavenly Way. These 5 heavenly ways are his supreme capital. Crazy Dragon Heavenly Way can enhance combat effectiveness, Stormy Heavenly Way, Fire Cloud Tiandao and Canghai Tiandao are his main means of attack, while Jinjia Tiandao can bring powerful defense. Now, Jinjia Tiandao has turned into a golden sphere, guarding his body, allowing him to stand up as strong as steel. But under the suppression of the ancestral dragon tower, even the power of the golden armor of heaven is trembling. There are a total of 3 top divine artifacts of the Peak Dragon clan. These are all higher end and more powerful artifacts than the 9 Dragons Chaos Divine Bell. They have the most rescue history. Among these 3 artifacts, Zhang Yunhai and Zhang Junjian each have one, both of which are Zhang Yunting gave them a pair. The black and gold spear in Zhang Junjian's hand was called the Holy Ancestor Tianlong Spear, and the one in Zhang Yunhai's hand was the Holy Ancestor Tianlong Sword. Now that the swords and spears that surpassed the 9 Dragons Chaos Divine Bell have already appeared, Zhang Yunhai wanted to use the Holy Ancestral Tianlong Sword to resist the suppression of the Ancestral Dragon Tower, but found that it was ineffective. The suppression and weakening of the Ancestral Dragon Tower were everywhere. Without the suppression of the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation, the real Zhang Junjian has just returned at this moment. It was only because of the power of sentient beings that he had been suppressed by the other party. Without the power of sentient beings, Zhang Yunhai would not know the level of his opponent. Millions of years ago, he actually surpassed Zhang Yunhai. The 2 brothers only need one look to know how the next battle will proceed. Zhang Yunhai must have wanted to defeat Zhang Zizai first and use Zhang Zizai to threaten Zhang Junjian. Even though his target seemed to be Zhang Junjian, Zhang Zizai must have known that he was secretly targeting him. However, he is fearless, because he now has too many divine totem abilities from the 9 Immortals, and he can completely change his body, and from this point on, all his terrifying control abilities have been exerted on Zhang Yunhai. There are more than a dozen totem abilities on his body, which are equivalent to the siege of more than a dozen gods. Under such restrictions, Zhang Yunhai was suppressed several times more severely than Zhang Junjian was suppressed by the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian array just now. He finally knew why his 2 men were defeated in front of Zhang Zizai. It was because his lethality could not be seen at all. In fact, he didn't know. The most important thing was because during the battle, the power of destruction is still growing, and now it is much stronger than before he defeated Zhang Yongxiao. Facing Zhang Yongxiao alone, Zhang Zizai may be able to defeat him now, not to mention that the one who is really at the forefront now is Zhang Junjian. Thinking about it, he had actually never fought side by side with his own brother. But at this moment, he feels very safe, because he knows that his brother is someone who can fight for himself. They have the same passion, the same hatred, and the same fate. One look is enough. Zhang Zizai has committed many evil deeds. He has trapped himself in a cocoon. If he does many injustices, he will die under Zhang Zizai's suppression. Zhang Junjian used the Holy Ancestor Heavenly Dragon Spear to pierce the heaven and earth, and used the power of the 5 heavens to launch a violent fight against Zhang Yunhai. His 5 heavenly ways were personally selected and practiced by Zhang Yunting for him, and they are called the 5 elements of heavenly ways. The 5 elements of heavenly ways are very close, and it is very likely that they will eventually merge with each other, reach the semi-ancestral state, and become the same existence as Zhangyunting. This is the divine choice for those with foresight. The 5 elements of heaven are, Vajra heaven, Yumu heaven, cold water heaven, molten fire heaven and thick earth heaven. These 5 heavenly paths are divided into 5 elements and complement each other. When used, the reason why they are so powerful is because the 5 heavenly paths produce each other. Reaction, this is the prerequisite for the fusion of heaven and earth. This is how Zhangyunting embarked on the road to being invincible in the world. If it weren't for the huge change back then, Zhang Junjian would actually be at the same semi-ancestral level as Zhangyunting now. This huge change wasted too much of his time. However, even so, he is still as talented as before, and he has never disappointed anyone. The son of the proud son of heaven also controls the heaven and the earth. The 5 elements of heaven, attacking with the holy ancestor heavenly dragon spear, completely suppressed Zhang Yunhai under the suppression of the ancestral dragon pagoda and Zhang Zizai in many aspects. If you want to capture me, just dream under the hypnosis of Zhang Zizai's dreamy mind. He actually had to be very awake, otherwise he would fall asleep and die. He didn't dare to admit it, but in his heart he felt real fear, because the most terrifying thing is not Zhang Junjian. He knows what Zhang Junjian has. What is scary to him is Zhang Zizai, because from the beginning to the end, he has never understood why this guy's strength is so weird. He has 4 major bodies and countless divine weapons. He can control soul, time, space, and other powers. Coupled with the suppression of Zilong Tower, Zhang Yunhai seems to be trapped in a quagmire. Of course, this quagmire cannot kill him, but the quagmire with Zhang Junjian moving freely in the middle, everything will be different. Moreover, can the mire really not kill him? Zhang Yunhai thought so, but in a daze, when Zhang Zizai's power to destroy heaven really invaded, he knew what fear was. An invisible force melted his golden armor and the way of heaven, and merged into his internal organs. This was a terrifying poison. Under this poison, even the power of the way of heaven began to melt. Endless weakness, starting from this moment, began to paralyze him. Once the balance was broken, once Zhang Zizai violently attacked and penetrated the power of destroying the law of heaven into his body bit by bit, he had no chance to resist. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1412. Sleeping, dizzy, the attack effect of Zhang Zizai's heavenly soul was very strong. Everything in front of him was constantly changing. He had fallen into the depths of the quagmire. It was too late to be afraid at this time. Of course, he didn't feel it yet. He roared and used the power of the 5 great heavenly ways to frantically disperse everything. The world remembered the violent explosion. Get out. Just these little tricks, if you have the guts, fight me head on. He really made Zhang Zizai angry and confused. He actually asked people to fight him openly. The one who responded to him was Zhang Zizai, who appeared in front of him. He appeared as if in a dream. A total of 4 bodies suddenly came towards him to kill. He did fight head on. These 5 great heavenly ways ignited the desire in Zhang Zizai's heart. Do you know why my power can suppress your heavenly way? In front of him, Zhang Zizai suddenly smiled strangely. Because, I am the flower of destruction. If I destroy your heavenly Dao, I will become infinitely powerful, and eventually, I will grow to the most terrifying realm you can imagine. So, Zhang Yunhai, this time, you have completely lost. Do you feel that your heavenly Dao is afraid of my existence? When Zhang Yunhai did not answer, Zhang Zizai's words made him fall into confusion and fear. He widened his eyes and stared at Zhang Zizai in a daze. This was a loss of mind, a sudden despair, and the best chance for Zhang Zizai. You lost, Zhang Zizai said coldly. I told you this to help my father. I was created by him, so you lost to him. No, Zhang Yunhai roared tremblingly. In fact, at this time, the suppression of the Zilong Tower, Zhang Zizai's control of the Heavenly Dao and the power of destroying the Heavenly Dao had already invaded comprehensively. Especially when his mind was lost, he was probably fascinated by Zhang Zizai to the most terrifying moment of his life. He did not resist at all and stood there. At this time, Zhang Junjian's fatal blow had arrived. The holy ancestor dragon spear, descending from the sky, with the 5 elements of the 5 heavenly ways, directly penetrated Zhang Yunhai's dragon head. The peak power of the 5 elements of heavenly ways was unstoppable, and the explosion in an instant left Zhang Yunhai with thousands of holes all over his body. In this way, he was definitely seriously injured and completely suppressed by Zhang Junjian's 5 elements of heavenly ways. At this time, the suppression of the ancestral dragon tower was even more fierce, and Zhang Yunhai could only struggle painfully in despair. I'm afraid his mind was still blank. He didn't expect Zhang Zizai to be so terrible. At this moment, he was completely swallowed up by Zhang Zizai's quagmire. In his world, there was mud everywhere that made him unable to breathe. Death and despair came so quickly. Under hatred, Zhang Zizai didn't give him any chance in his brothers. After all, so many compatriots who had been killed and injured were all caused by this person's evil deeds. It's time to give an explanation to those dead brothers and sisters. This explanation came a little late, but at least it was not absent. Next, Zhang Zizai appeared in front of him. When Zhang Junjian pinned Zhang Yunhai, Zhang Zizai's destructive power swept wildly on Zhang Yunhai's body, using the 6 thunder flame pillars as carriers to continuously bombard the opponent's body, attacking infinitely and breaking infinitely. As Zhang Yunhai screamed, the heavenly way was broken one by one, and Zhang Zizai's destructive power was increasing step by step, reaching an unprecedented peak. I was wrong, spare my life, I will fight against the 4 peak races with you, I was wrong, spare my life, please, you won completely. At the last moment, Zhang Yunhai, who was crying bitterly, no longer cared about his face, admitted his mistakes in front of the world, and wagged his tail like a puppy. It doesn't matter. After you die, your power will boost my power and merge into my power. You are still contributing to the peak dragon race. This is your last atonement. Zhang Zizai's words at this moment made him fall into deeper despair. He could clearly feel that after the destruction of his heavenly way, Zhang Zizai became even more terrifying. Perhaps at this time, he truly understood that Zhang Yunting, the second son, was the most terrifying existence in the world. It's too late to understand now, because his life completely disappeared under the destruction. When he was left with only his corpse, Zhang Zizai had grown to the extreme. Taishan God realm brings too much luck to the power of destruction. Everything is over. Zhang Junjian collected the corpses of Zhang Yunhai and the other 3, and also collected everything from the 3 of them. At this time, the world was dead silent, and people were immersed in this battle that was enough to affect the peak dragon race for tens of millions of years, and were deeply immersed in the horror and iron blood of Zhang Zizai's return this time. Zhang Junjian appeared in front of all living beings. He said, Zhang Yunhai has paid the price he should pay. From now on, our peak dragon clan should take another path. Don't worry, there will indeed be a war next, but we are sure to win. Please believe us and ourselves. From now on, no one can enslave our peak dragon clan. Next, he has a lot of arrangements. He needs to appease people's hearts, modify the peak holy dragon guardian formation, get to know all the gods again, and prepare for the next real war and real revenge. They have already planned it. With him here, Zhang Zizai is of course very relieved. Now all living beings have recognized their brothers and are excited for them. In fact, the peak dragon clan has found true faith since then. They are a passionate clan and have never been willing to be cowards and let others bully them. The pride in their blood is unmatched. At this moment, everyone is united. Under the comfort and arrangement of Zhang Junjian, the Peak Dragon clan will immediately return to the track. I believe that when Zhang Zizai comes back again, this place is fully prepared to welcome the war. Zhang Zizai is leaving. He is going to return to Sankong Street, seize the time to absorb the destruction curse, and take this opportunity to make himself stronger. Then immediately proceed to the next step of the plan. The other 4 peak races will definitely know everything that happened here. They must fight quickly and seize the initiative. They are not passively fighting, but going out to fight. In Zhang Junjian's plan, Zhang Zizai needs to do more next time. He separated from her first. Looking at the beautiful woman in front of him, Zhang Zizai's restless heart calmed down a lot. Silly, don't worry, step by step, the hardest step has been completed, and next, you will do more, believe in yourself. Anyway, it's good now. At any time, I can live and die with you, she said with a smile.